Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Yeah, so my name's Scott. I'm here to tell you a little bit about, or I guess speak from the perspective of a small to medium-sized business, and really how, you know, a leader like myself over a small team like I have engages in being concerned about the health and wellness of our employees and how we do that as best as we can. The best way for me to do that is to tell you the story of what we've gone through so far and really explain the process, and I'm sure there'll be some questions that come out of that. But where my story starts, or where our story starts as a team, is really when I was 17 years old. I didn't start the company when I was 17 years old. I was actually in a watercraft accident. I was swimming while one of my brother's friends was on our family watercraft, Sea-Doo, and he hit me in the back while I was swimming. A little bit traumatic at the time, created an ongoing thing. I have to stay concerned for taking care of my back, but more than that, anything, it probably ruined my volleyball career, and so at least that's what I blame it on. After that, we fast forward to when I began to work at Belair Office Products. Now, Catherine introduced Belair. We're a small office furniture manufacturer located in London, Ontario, consisting of about 30, there's 30 families that are represented there. 9 people are in the office to some degree or another. Out of those 9 people, we're trying to do our best to make sure we're taking care of them as they work in the office, but really all 30 of them, we're trying to make sure we have this good conversation. How do we take care of the people that we have? When I started at Belair, I was not somebody who worked in the office. I actually started at Belair working on a machine, assembling products, working in the factory. And for me, this was great. Wanting to stay physical, wanting to stay active, moving heavy machinery, working with heavy machinery, not moving it, and lifting materials, assembling things. That was great, kept me active, kept me fit, and I didn't notice much. My long-term back pain problems advanced a little further forward, and I have the opportunity to move into management at Belair, and as I move into management, I move into the office, and I end up sitting down a lot more all day now. There's probably 1 or 2 management jokes in there. I'm not going to go for them. From that, though, we sort of started to have a discussion in the office. Okay, we need to figure out how we solve this. I was probably the catalyst for that. I start sitting down. It starts bothering me personally. And so I say, how do we figure this out? We build this stuff. We build office furniture. How do we figure this out? And so our first sort of kick at it, we decided to develop some furniture that was partially sitting and partially standing. So a fixed sitting work surface and a fixed standing work surface. And we thought this was a great idea, thought it was going to be very helpful, and a different solution than the height adjustable stations that we see all over the place. And so we said, okay, we're going to go for it. We renovated our entire office, which to us was a massive undertaking for 9 workstations. That was a big deal to us, and we did it, and everybody got one of them. And it seemed to be helpful. It seemed to encourage sort of activity, encourage people moving, and that was really the idea, not just to have people forced to be standing, but to encourage people moving around a bit more, and that was very helpful. But we learned one valuable lesson in the midst of that process, and all of you guys here know this already. People are very different. Because people are so different, to have one fixed sitting height station and one fixed standing height station doesn't work too well. I've got people in the office that are 6'4", and we have another one that's 5'1", and to give them the same fixed standing height doesn't work that well, or didn't work that well. So we learned some positive things, and we learned from our mistakes as well, and we began to have this conversation. Okay, how do we do this better? How do we figure this out? And it was neat to see the team engage in it. Now we do this for a living. We build this stuff. So how do we change this? How do we get better at this? And that was really part of the conversation started to happen, and people bring up, okay, what about height adjustable workstations? What if we bring some of those in? Okay, I'm willing to do that, I'd say. But to go like full bore and try and renovate the entire office again, we just went through this process. So now it gets a little intimidating, right? I mean, we're a small little company. How do we do that? And so I said, okay, we're going to do it different. We're going to approach it a little different than the first time. We're going to do one workstation. Of course, it makes sense we do my workstation first. We did. I know I feel a little bad about that, but I knew I was going to use it, right? I knew I was going to use this workstation. And I did. I used it up and down quite a bit, probably more than the statistics we're seeing. I'll use it every day, multiple times a day, going up and down. But my preference is to try to stay as active as possible. And so as I used it, though, there was a little bit of office envy, I guess, from other people. But as I used it, it started having a positive effect on the other people around us. Even though there was a little bit negative, yeah, the boss gets one, that's nice. But gradually, you know, people know that I'm concerned about this, that we're concerned about this. We tried it once with the first solution, and now this is our second try. And so this conversation started happening. And we said, how do we, you know, what are we learning? Okay, here's how you're using it. Here's when you choose to use it. Here's when you don't choose to use it. And, you know, and it often ended up with feedback to me from other staff there sort of saying, you know, I'd really like one and here's why, or I'm not interested in that at all and here's why. And it was good to start the conversation rolling. From that, more than anything, it became very obvious for us anyways that everybody in the office wanted to do a better job of taking care of themselves at work. Right, and so we have the privilege of having one of the people on our team who's actually a fitness trainer for the city. She does, you know, speed walking classes, stretching classes, different things like that. And because I know she has that background, I asked her if she'd be interested in, you know, doing maybe a 15-minute break or a 10-minute break 2 times a day and do some stretching in the office. And well, at first, that's a little awkward to stand up and have everybody stretch together, but over time, people got through that, and it became very helpful, actually, to the point where now, if we miss stretching for a day, everybody's on this lady saying, what's the deal? We want to do our stretching. We like it. It feels good to get, you know, get the blood moving, get things going again. And it's been very helpful for us, but it does show, you start to see the progression that we've had, right? We tried once, we tried one workstation that's height adjustable, and now we've got people being more and more concerned about how do we all stay a little more active at work. From there, I guess we moved to our second height adjustable workstation. So far we have 3 in the office now, and I'll sort of take you through what happened for each of those individuals. I'm the first one. The next one is what I call our easy sell. She was interested in height adjustable workstation already, so it worked very well for us. She's one of our designers, and we ended up having another customer service person come on, and we moved her to a different location in the office. And when you move somebody, it's a lot easier to make some change at the same time. So we did, and I had to sit down with her, had a conversation. I said, okay, here's what you're doing right now. How can we help? How do we make it better? And she had feedback already ready for me. She was eager for a height adjustable station. And for good reason. She's one of the few in the office who are 5'1", right? So to work at the station that we currently had in our office, it was not helpful for her. And she said, one, for standing, it's not that great, but even for sitting at a regular standard 29-inch high desk is not that great. And she's adjusting her chair way up, talking about footrests, those kind of things. And she said, if I could work lower, if I could have a work surface that was lower, that would really help me. It wasn't so much for standing, it was actually just to be able to work lower, right? And we have 2 options. You know, at Belair, we could have just built her a desk that was shorter or provide a height adjustable solution. And so that's what we did. We put one in for her, and I think she'd fit the model we heard about this morning. She probably uses it standing height maybe 2, maybe 3 hours in a week, and the rest of the time she's actually sitting at about 27 inches high at her desk and working at that most of the time. But she was the easy sell. The next move that we made was what I call the hard sell. There's a lady in her office in scheduling, and she's, I guess you'd say, quite opposed to the idea of changing her workstation at all. She's a very active person, actually, really into baseball. She's all excited about the Blue Jays. Thank you. Very active lady. Has shoulder problems because she plays so much baseball. So her, you know, you talk about giving each individual the choice and giving them the option to be able to work how they want to work, and I'm really valuing the emphasis on educating those people as well, because this is a case for that. She's so determined to stay as active as possible. She works, you know, we have, each individual has 2 working surfaces, and this person chooses to work at the standing work surface all the time. So much so she's got her computer up there, both monitors up there, keyboard, and it's fixed there, and she maybe does a little bit of sorting sitting. Not very great for her, but then on top of that, playing baseball over the last year, she actually injured her knee, and as she injured her knee, the doctors are telling her, you cannot be standing as much as you are, you can't stand all day at work, you've got to sit a little bit to ease, you know, to ease up on your knee. And being forced to do that by doctors' recommendations, you can probably imagine, right? You imagine the scenario. There's half of a sitting workstation, and then half the workstation is standing, and it's completely set up to work standing. So now she sits at her chair, and works like this. Right? With shoulder problems already, that's probably not that great for her. But I'm not sure if it's athletic pride or what it is. She's convinced she's going to get back to working, full speed ahead and stuff like that. But she was really opposed to the idea of a height adjustable workstation as well, to try and come up with that as a solution. I wasn't the only one. This, again, sort of a testimony that it becomes a conversation in our office. I wasn't the only one to approach her on this. I wasn't even the first one, actually. A bunch of the other team members came up to her and said, how can you do this? How can you work like that? It can't be good for you. Or some would just say, please stop working like that. It hurts us watching you work like that. So eventually I sit facing her, and I went over to her one day when she was working away like that, and said, we have to talk. And I know there's a couple questions about how to roll out with an employee, how to roll out the conversation of, height adjustable workstations and changing it. So maybe this would be a textbook example for you. I walked over to her and I said, okay, we need to talk about this. I really don't like the way that you work. And she, I got a few chuckles in the office, and I said, I'm not talking about the task you're doing. I'm not talking about how well you do your job. I'm talking about physically how you're working. It's not good for you. We need to help you. We want to help you. And I said, so I need you to trust me. And she's like, nope, I don't want to do it. I said, okay, I really need you to trust me. And it's not like she was just being stubborn. She had valid reasons, right? And some of the reasons we hear all over the place still. First one was storage. Because she worked standing most of the time, the rest of her desk, she had little storage compartments set up. She's like, what am I going to do with all this stuff? Right? Where am I going to put it all? And the second problem she had is, I don't like the way it looks. I really just simply don't like the way it looks, and I don't want to go to that. I said, okay, well, we work in office furniture, so we can probably figure some of this stuff out. I just need you to be patient with me, and we'll work through this together, and we'll gradually come up with the solutions that are going to meet your needs. And still being very opposed to it, she backed away from her desk and let me get a hold of it, and we changed that desk. And it still hasn't had, well, it didn't have a lot of buy-in for a little while after that, actually. We worked together, we came up with some storage solutions, and I think it works pretty well now for her functionally. But still, about 2 weeks after we made the change to a height adjustable workstation, I was away at a trade show, and I got a picture from one of the other team members, almost tattling on this lady, because she's got her height adjustable workstation at about 40 inches high, and she's sitting in her chair working like this. And I felt like I wasn't doing a good job of training or increasing knowledge for people. But it just shows the process we're trying to go through, right? And I think that's the idea why we're talking about this. Since then, she's gradually more and more started using it the way you'd expect. Prefers to stand most of the time still, but she's using it much more properly anyways. And from that, we realized that we need some help, actually. And so we got into a conversation, started having a conversation with a engineering and ergonomics firm, and had them come, and we've just recently been doing this, had them come and give us some information, give us some education, because we want to be better at what we're doing. We want to be better at how we're taking care of our people. And I tell you, even in the first couple meetings, we haven't done individual assessments, which obviously we need to be doing, and we can hear the argument for that and what we've heard this morning. But even in the first couple meetings, meeting with the specialist, I've become, and you think about this from the person trying to lead a small business perspective, I've become very aware that I don't even know the right questions to ask. Right? I'm concerned about my people. I want to see them working as best as they can. I want to see them as efficient as they can be. But I don't even know the right questions to ask. And where do I find that help? It was helpful having somebody like this come in and make us realize that. And the reason why I don't know the right questions to ask is very much the same lesson we learned in the beginning, because people are so different, right? They're so different, not just in height, but in the way they approach their work and the tasks they're doing. All these factors that we're hearing about, it makes such a difference. And so how do we, I guess, the question I come asking a question more than I come, answering questions. How do we solve this problem for the for the little guy out there, for the small companies out there that don't have tons of infrastructure that can handle this, but want to care about their people? And if I could encourage you at all, or maybe challenge this group of people who has so much knowledge about this topic, I guess I want to challenge you and encourage you to please keep pushing or keep championing this conversation. It doesn't sound like today it doesn't sound like the conversation's done. It still sounds like we're just getting started. And so keep championing it. And please, you know, I'm sure we're going to have more discussion today. Please keep trying to figure out ways to let it trickle down into the little guy's office, right? It is going to be helpful, and there's all sorts of people working in offices of 5, 10, 25, 50, and we want to impact them just as much, right? So how we do that is very important. And if you think about those people trying to lead those teams, I guess I'd leave you with 2 thoughts. Number 1, we need help. We need help getting that conversation going and being educated and implementing that education, but we also need someone who's going to be patient enough to go through that process with us. So those are my 2 closing thoughts, and thanks for having me.